to Athletics LLC with Lamar, Lucious, Big League Chew, and my man Clyde. You're about to be schooled in all things track and field. This is experience.
Yes, sir.
We are talking past, present, future. Y'all listen up. Let's go.
Welcome one, welcome all. It's Athletics LLC Day. Once again, we join these lovely tiles and we have a guest this week to discuss all things track and field, not related and related. So we're going to continue a little bit of what we talked about last week and then dive into some other things that are just fun topics as always. So if I could, I am going to go ahead and introduce the lovely tiles that I share screens with right now. Clyde, how we doing on the West?
Oh, it's been a fun day.
See, on any given day, that can be completely serious and completely sarcastic too. And you haven't even driven home yet, so that's the best part.
I definitely am not at home. Definitely not home.
Oh my goodness. Lamar, my own boss Huffins. That I feel like that's a lot right there. That there's a lot of hidden messages behind that one.
There may be, but nothing today could be any more important than the fact that Derek Jeter went into the Hall of Fame today.
Oh, I haven't done anything on TV, so that's cool. That's super cool. I'm glad I learned that. Sir Lucious, how are you today, sir?
You know, I'm absolutely wonderful. I have had a fantastic day. And, you know, someone asked me today if I was recovering from my antics over the last month. I told them I'm about 75%. And I got home and realized I was alive about 60%. So. But it's getting better than the 30% I was last week. So it's getting better.
I mean, here's the huge question. Are you waking up at what we call normal United States Eastern time zone hours? Or like, have you recovered from that?
No. Like 2 nights ago, I slept for like 2 hours. Like, no, it's just terrible.
Wow.
Like I fell asleep at 3:30 and woke up at 5:30.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Not. So I'm gonna stop talking about that because I want it to go away. So
I know we're not gonna do that.
Monster by talking about it. I'm going to go to sleep tonight.
Oh, that's funny. Last but not least, we have a great guest on this week with us. I'm not going to cheat him out of the 2 letters that he went to school for. Dr. Ross Flowers, how are you today, sir?
It's a pleasure being here. I'm feeling very good. Thank you.
Good. So Dr. Flowers has a list of credentials that I'm not going to butcher. So I'm going to go ahead and let him give those. But for those of you who don't know, he does have a position with USA Track and Field in regards to athletes and their mental health I shouldn't say status, aiding them with mental health. Let me make that right. As well as having a track career of his own that he can boast about. So if you don't mind just giving us a little bit about yourself, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so we can go all the way back to Junior Olympic Nationals.
Love it.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so I ended up going to UCLA on a full ride scholarship, but I think my claim to fame was winning 5 national championships in multiple events, which I'm sure Chris can relate to here. In long jump, 100, 50-meter hurdles, 110-meter hurdles, 200-meter hurdles, all before I graduated high school. So I felt very good about going into high school, winning state titles and setting records and going on to UCLA to be an All-American, focusing just in the 110 hurdle and the sprint relay. But after that, learned a lot more about mental health and how mental health plays a vital role in sport and performance and just, of course, our regular lifestyles. And went on to get a doctorate in counseling psychology, and I focused in sport and performance. I was able to create a applied sports psychology program at UC Davis that I ran for 7 years before going on to work with the U.S. Olympic Committee. I was with them for 4 years. In between, for about 10 years, I worked a lot with USA Track and Field, traveling to world championships, Olympic Games, and just your regular competitions as you go through the year, where I spent a lot of time with 2 of these gentlemen with USA Track and Field. after beating up on Chris, of course, while he was at Berkeley and I was at UCLA. But we won't get into that. I don't want his feelings to get
Beating
hurt while
up
we're on this call.
on Chris. Said nobody ever. Let's just be clear.
These were the real Bruins, the real Bears at UCLA. But I digress. So after my stint working at the Olympic Committee, I really focused on building my private practice, Giles Consulting Group, which I've been running now for, about 15 years. But now based in Los Angeles, working with athletes, coaches, parents, and families from high school through college, still working with Olympic athletes, professional sports in football, basketball, and baseball, doing executive coaching and working with many of our fine military veterans. So fun schedule, very fun schedule.
Beneficial schedule for others, it sounds like. So awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here with us tonight, and definitely appreciate the 2 cents that you have to give us and our viewers, because obviously not that this is a hot topic, but it's a topic that warrants time and attention. And that's why we brought it up for everyone to kind of just hear our perceptions and thoughts about it. So I'm going to automatically shoot a question off to you, having gone to your website and kind of just clicked around and see what your focuses are. What do you think is one thing that everyone can do daily to experience perceived success?
I think daily, it's really finding what allows you to feel good about yourself. So for example, I talk with, again, the variety of clients that I work with, we talk a lot about passion and desire. And where does that come from? And if we can identify that within ourselves, like what really makes us happy? What are we motivated to do in life? It can help us feel like we're not working every day. We can enjoy some of those moments because we're doing things that we really enjoy, things that we love, hopefully. And so if we can identify that in life, we'll probably find a lot more happiness than struggles.
Okay, I wanted to ask this. I reached out to Ross after our segment last week. I actually had some people reach out to me that were very excited that we broached this subject. We talked a lot last week about the social media aspect of this, but there's a lot more that goes into mental health than the social side of this. I mean, there are people that are struggling because they lost a loved one, people that are struggling because they lost a job, people that are struggling because, someone doesn't love them or they haven't learned to love themselves enough. Can you speak to that as well as even the aspect of what the mental, how this whole pandemic and the virus has affected people's mental health?
Oh yeah, this pandemic has been tough on all of us in different ways. Whether it's our own health, being secluded, trying to find things we can do to occupy ourselves and our time, having to work or go to school in maybe a confined or very different area than you're accustomed, but also just the loss of not just your freedom and flexibilities, but loss of life. And the impact that's had on, not just families, but communities and populations of people that has been extremely difficult. And so being cognizant of that as you move through your day, that, for example, you may be in a grocery store and feel impatient because a line is taking too long. And you want to take that aggression out on someone who's in front of you or the cashier. You have no idea what that cashier is going through. And so just being more cognizant of how we're presenting ourselves and accepting ourselves in moments of struggle that we're all dealing with, just in different ways.
Okay, so do you have any specific advice for people, that are trying to, one of the things I like to say to people, I'm definitely not a professional, but I talk to people about, you don't have to get over this, but you have to find a way to get through it. What advice do you have for people that are trying to get through these things? Like, how do they navigate those waters?
I think communication is extremely important. It's vital. And not just communication you have with others, but communication you have with yourself. Like, for example, are you really being honest with how you're experiencing your day, how you're feeling, what you're actually percolating between your own ears, just our strongest muscles between our ears. And if we feed it a lot of negativity, we're going to feel negative. We're going to do negative things. So if we can strengthen our communication internally with not just positive thoughts, but motivational, progressive thinking. That can be helpful. But in addition, how we communicate with others, and so how we choose our words, how we choose to interact with people speaks a lot about where we're coming from. And also hopefully gives us a better chance and opportunity to listen. And when we really listen to what other people are saying, it may be hopefully what's coming out of their mouth, but also what their body language is telling us. So there's a lot of things to pay attention to in terms of how we can use our communication to improve not only how we feel, but how we interact with other people.
Dr. Flowers, I wanted to ask you two separate questions. I'll leave the second one for later on, but a large portion of our audience is obviously connected to track and field, and you have a direct connection to the sport in this field specifically. Do you feel that our sport is uniquely positioned? Does it have a unique level of, for lack of a better word, mental torture on the athletes compared to other sports? Is our sport uniquely difficult, or do you think it's about the same?
In some ways, it is very different because it is an individual sport. But you could compare that to other individual sports, gymnastics, tennis, to name a couple. Because it is of the individual nature, you don't have as much of an opportunity. There are some, depending on the group of people you have around you. For example, if you have your coach, your trainer, maybe a strength conditioning coach, maybe a therapist, folks you have within your camp that you can socialize with, normalize things with, that can be helpful. But most individuals, when it comes to competition, they're out there on their own. And so they don't have that opportunity to share the experience of anxiety, pressure, expectation with others. Even in the relays, that's still, it's a team event, but it's still very individual in performance. And so that opportunity to take that full responsibility for your actions lies on the individual. And so I think that can, for some, burden them with a lot of unwanted feelings and thoughts. And so in that way, I think track and field is very different. It's also very different in the diversity of events. Chris can speak to this very well. Just the diversity of how you have to train, how you have to step up to performance, depending on the events that you're doing, how you identify yourself within those events. And so there are a lot of things, and this may be more similar, to example, for something like gymnastics, that sport, but very different than team sports. So track and field is unique.
Can I jump in there?
Please.
So Dr. Flowers, I think that what I've been running into in the last month, so we'll say going right before the Olympics and then ever since, my friends seem to call me and they're very confused with the juxtaposition of mental toughness and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think a lot of people my age or closer to my age are going to struggle a lot with that, because we were overly so, and definitely wrongfully so in some cases, we were browbeat that we had to be mentally tough. And we took a whole lot of things we probably shouldn't have ever been asked to take. But there's a crossroads there, right? To being tough enough as required to excel in your sport and dealing with legitimate issues that one shouldn't have to deal with. You know what I mean? The one that are not sport related. But I think sometimes here in the last month or so, they've come out in ways that I think folks are confused. So if you could, and I know I'm sounding somewhat convoluted, I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but I think we all get where I'm going. If you could speak to that, I think that would be awesome, because I think that is a misunderstanding going rampant in our audience and probably most audiences.
Well, that's a great question, and it's a great topic. So I think a lot of folks are confused about. In my preference, I don't like the word or the phrase mental toughness. I think it leads people astray to think that you have to be strong like a muscle, or that your thoughts or emotions or undesirable experiences have to bounce off of you because you're tough like Teflon. I prefer mental adaptability. And so teaching folks how to adapt to different situations. One of the things that I will never forget that I picked up in my work with Navy SEALs was how they look for folks who are adaptable. Not the strongest person, not the fastest person, not the smartest person, but the person who can adapt to different environments and situations. And so when we talk about high performance, whether it's in sport or business or military, whatever it may be, your ability to adapt, particularly in the moment, is critical. And so if we can talk about how we mentally adapt, which could include how you listen, how you communicate, how you motivate, how you develop resilience, how you build and how you build confidence and how you move with confidence. All these things go into a mental adaptability, as opposed to talking to folks about, come on, man, you got to toughen up. Don't let that bother you. Well, it does bother me. And if I suppress that it's bothering me, I'm doing myself a disservice. I'm not allowing myself to grow through that experience. Like you said, Coach Holloway, you work through things, right? You don't just accept it and deal with it and suppress it. And now you're weighted down by whatever that unwanted experience is. You learn how to adapt through it. And those are skills that you have to develop. And so just as you're coaching folks in track and field, in the same way, you want to coach them in their mental and emotional development. And a lot of that is teaching them, for example, how do they accept being coached? Who is actually coachable? Now imagine those are the folks that you're looking for when you're recruiting. You're looking for not just the folks who are extremely talented or skilled, you want folks who are coachable. Can you go from being a great high school student athlete to a great, if not exceptional, college or maybe professional athlete? And so mental adaptability is, I think, something that needs to be addressed more and more frequently addressed in sport.
And I'm going to be a bit of a clown before I ask my next question, but clearly Lamar moving to Texas has heightened his intelligence level even more than we expected. So, great question, sir.
Well, we can't possibly blame that on moving to Texas, given what's going on in the state of Texas.
Well,
no, because now I'm one of the smartest people in the state I live in.
There you go.
So now it's very important that I
touche.
Have to dust off my degree and actually speak intelligently, because
there you go.
Good Lord knows.
So my question for you, Ross, Dr. Flowers, is that we talked a little bit here about communication, and I think we've all heard the adage that communication is not said, it's what's heard. It's not written, it's what's read. How do we become one, as you talked about, we see people with issues and we have to be able to identify that. How do we become better communicators with people? Like you said, we take off you got to be tougher. How do we communicate with folks when we see they're having problems? How do we become better listeners? I know the thing is, well, you just have to listen, but what are we listening for?
Yeah. Well, I think it is through communication and being comfortable with talking about not just being strong and tough and working through things, but there are struggles. There are challenges that people deal with and are experiencing, and it's okay to talk about them. So we start really destigmatizing mental health and mental wellness, and it becomes part of anything else. Just like, you have a pulled hamstring. In sport, that's talked about all the time. That's just part of, that's part of performance. But now if we talk about anxiety or depression, now it's like, whoa, what's going on? They're weak. It's like, well, how's that any weaker than someone who hasn't developed their hamstring and pulled their hamstring? There's no difference. And so accepting that, folks who are going through not just struggles and challenges, but everyday woes. Not everyone wakes up with a smile on their face and has a wonderful day. And so being able to accept that folks want to talk about, I'm feeling a little anxious today. It's not a problem, but I'm just feeling a little anxious about, Coach Huffins, you just put in front of me, a 600 breakdown. I'm a little anxious about that. I don't know if I'm going to handle that today. I don't feel good about it. Is that okay to say? Or do I have to be tough, suck it up, just get my butt on the track and run?
So are you kind of saying we have to learn to speak their language?
Exactly. And not necessarily their language, a combined understanding of communication, right?
Okay.
So in the same way that athletes are asked to adapt and adjust to their coaches' languages, coaches can do the same. And I realize that that's an edge, right? That can be a razor's edge of how far do you go in acquiescing to a student athlete, in this example, a student athlete's mindset or growth and development before you're allowing them to tell you how to coach them. Yet you can understand how to motivate them. And if you understand how to communicate with them effectively, your opportunity to motivate them will be that much better. Because you'll know, for example, maybe an incoming freshman, if you yell at them and demand things of them, they may break down and fall apart. And so now you may have lost someone who could be a very good athlete for you because you haven't figured out how to communicate well.
Dr. Flowers, I like where you went with that. As coaches, I've talked with my colleagues for years about you can't treat everybody the exact same way. You have to be agile enough to speak different ways, different languages to different kids, because they're all coming from different places. We're all coaches here. In your experience with athletes, what would you say are the top thing or maybe the top two things that coaches consistently do a poor job at that leads to the mental deterioration of athletes?
Number one thing that comes to mind is not listening. And I'm hesitating because I'm thinking about examples I have in my mind of younger coaches compared to older coaches. And I think coaches who get, and I won't necessarily say age range, but I'm saying coaches who get stuck in, I've been doing this for X amount of years, I'm not changing. And so they don't adapt to new generations of learning and training. And I've found in my experience, more coaches find that disconnect with their athletes when they're not able to adapt. And I think that then ties into not listening to who's in front of them.
So I think what you said speaks to the big, gigantic elephant in the room, in the coaching landscape in 2021. It's about the coach-athlete relationship has always been linked to, it works best when there's trust, right? Now, when we were younger, trust came at, it was real simple. You showed up, you trusted coach, or you left. Like, I get it. That's not right. I do understand that, right? But there is some amount of success that comes from that. The issue you have now is, as a coach, if I'm willing to understand and believe exactly what you said, which I am, I have to adapt and meet you. Not necessarily 50-50, but I got to meet you where you're at to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. The issue becomes a great number of student athletes now, because they are so used to here in the last 3 or 4 years, demand and get, that they now feel it is our job as coaches to adapt holistically to them. Like, come 99, they come 1. And that can't work.
No.
Right. And so, like, there's that tough conversation that's made tougher by the fact that, like, we don't have any shared time yet. Like, you're a freshman. I've been coaching for 23 years. We don't have a shared construct yet. But if I don't coach you exactly the way you feel like you should be coached, you're ready to go to compliance or this person or that person and say, I don't get it.
Right.
When the truth is like, that's not it either. Right. There's no meeting room. Right. For the clash of constructs right now. And that's why I think right now is probably the toughest time there's ever been to be a coach.
I'd agree. And, so I've worked with coaches that have struggled with, athletes going directly to the AD or even the school president and writing letters and complaining, or parents doing the same thing. And so now parents or coaches are trying to figure out, what do I do? And so it makes me wonder how those coaches recruited those athletes. Did they actually have those conversations up front about, this is who I am as a coach, this is how I run my program. I want to get to know you as a student athlete and what your expectations are, and start building that bridge you're talking about, Coach Huffins, early. And so before they get on campus, you have an idea of what student athletes coming into your program, and they have hopefully a very good idea, if not crystal clear idea, of what type of program and coaching environment they're entering. And so the student athlete and the families, their parents, aren't throwing their hands up like, wait a minute, I had no idea this coach was going to talk to my child this way. Were they not paying attention, or, where was the breakdown is my question.
And I'll say I'm 100% on board with that. I really am. I think the problem, and I think that my coaching cohorts on this panel will agree, kids say and do and understand a lot of things in recruiting, and the world changes when you hit them with some 500s or 400s or 600s or whatever it is that they think is too far, right? Because you got kids who came from a short sprint program. They haven't run anything longer than 150 or 200. We've had the conversations about what we do in training. When they came on a visit, they saw what we did. It isn't what they do. We had all these conversations. They still wanted to come. Then we get there and they think that, I'm supposed to change. Now we're running, we don't run any further than 150s, and, and we chill for 4 days before the meet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the thing is like, the unfortunate part is, it's like, again, because there's no relationship, no true relationship in the recruiting process, right? You're telling them the truth and what they want to hear, some conglomeration. They're hearing what they want to hear. And at the end of the day, like, Coach Holloway's school is really pretty, so I want to go to Florida, right? I don't necessarily like all the things he does, but I want to go to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so at the end of the day, like, they get what they want,
Mm-hmm.
which is to go to Florida. And then they get to meet like Coach Holloway, and they're like, this ain't what I want.
Yeah, and I think I would imagine that's where you start ferreting out those folks, what their true motivation and desire is. Was it to be at a program or in a program that has really cool stuff? It looks good. I know it's going to be on TV. It's going to be on ESPN, or they have great equipment rooms that I really like. It's a stadium I really like. Or are they really motivated to put the work in to be part of that history of success, to create their own future success? So it taps into, again, that individual's desire.
I think with the way the rules are currently constructed, as far as the world of the NCAA is concerned, I think one of the pitfalls of the new rules and the way things work is there's a lot more room for dishonesty now. Coaches can get away with talking a lot of nonsense, and kids can absolutely get away with letting coaches believe whatever they want, because everybody feels like they have the freedom to do what they want, when they want, how they want. And for me, I've always had more success, especially in the recruiting realm, just being honest with people, just telling parents and athletes really what it is. And I'm sure I've lost a few because I'm so blunt and so straightforward. But once they arrive, I rarely have that specific type of problem. We got other problems, right? But I think there's way too much dishonesty in the game right now from all sides. And I think people are hell-bent on using the structure of the rules as an automatic out. And I just think it gives a lot of people a false sense of security.
Yeah, I'm really amazed by this portal that student athletes can go into now. I still haven't figured it out. I'm dealing with some 25-year-old juniors and sophomores right now. I don't understand how that works.
a very necessary evil, but it is necessary.
Yeah, and I think that, when you're talking about some of the issues you have, I'm not sure why Mr. Huff has chosen to use Florida as an example, because that stuff doesn't happen on this campus, sir. But
But that's why I used Florida, because I know that's not the issue there.
But I think the big thing you have to, and Dr. Flower spoke to it earlier, it's a communication. And I think that, okay, anytime you're dealing with winning, anytime you're dealing with how people make a living, there's certain people out there who are going to lie. That's just what they do. You know, whenever you're dealing with money, people are going to become somebody they usually aren't, because it's a desperation thing in most cases, I believe anyway. But if you're completely honest with someone, then they can never come back to you and say, well, you didn't say that. So from the very first conversation, establish that honesty, in my opinion. From the very first conversation, let them know who you are. You know, and everybody that knows me, there's a different guy that sits on this chair talking to you guys that's on the track every day. But I'm honest about that. So when we have those discussions on the track, they're not surprised. So I think that some of these issues that some people have is, like, you know, Clyde said, is dishonesty. But I also think that if you communicate properly with people, you can get through almost anything. And I also believe that, I tell people this in recruiting, I need a year. I need a year for you to get to know me and me to get to know you. And then we've got each other figured out, and now we can communicate.
Yeah. And not too long, this is fresh in my mind, because not too long ago, I did a presentation with a team on communication. So this Henry Ford quote is still stuck in my mind about, you know, coming together is the beginning, keeping it together is progress, but working together is success. And so really building communication.
You better write that down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can write that fast.
So I'll say it again. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress, but working together is success.
That's about to be on everybody's shirt this year. Literally, that's about to be on everybody's shirt.
Nice.
Henry Ford, that's who said it, y'all.
Yeah.
It's Henry Ford. Yes, it's not mine. It's Henry Ford. What really stands out to me about that, in the same way in any athletic environment, is that you're trying to develop successful behaviors. And communication is one of those. And so the energy that you can put into building effective communication behaviors, skills, hopefully become habits, that can help build a successful program.
Wow, that is
We
very powerful.
We appreciate the bars, sir. That might be a good place to let him out, Chew.
I know. That was literally the mic.
It's not gonna get any better than that, is it? Wow.
Right, man.
Yeah.
And on that note, if you don't mind, Dr. Flowers, just let everyone know your website. And that way, if they want to further communications with you, communicate with you, or even just, you know, click around like I did today and just kind of see what it is that you do. And, you know, it sparked an interest to me of like really making me self-assess as to like how this fits in for what I'm trying to do. So if you don't mind just letting our audience know what your website is.
Sure, the website is www.gilesllc.com. That's GILESLLC.com.
Well, awesome. We appreciate your time. The website is worth the time to click around. There's a lot of good stuff and I was intrigued. So we appreciate you completely. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your evening. And we will all make sure to say hi.
I appreciate it. It's great to see you guys.
Never let me down, my man. I appreciate
you.
Dr. Flowers, I will get your cell phone number from Sir Lucious, and I will text you shortly.
Please do. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, sir.
All right, guys. Take care.
Have a great evening.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. Yeah. That whole quote is like just resonating in my head right now. Mm-hmm. That was wow. Wow. Yeah, that might be, that was are we Emmys? Are we Grammys? What are we? That was, that was our nomination, right?
We're definitely not Grammys. We are not Grammys.
Oh yeah, no, that's music. Just kidding. I don't know.
Lucious only half sang once. Like we're not.
Let's not start that again because he's not let me off the hook for that one yet. As soon as I think he's forgotten, then here you come again, Clyde.
My bad.
I love it. That's
I'm
hilarious.
never gonna forget. So like, you should give that up.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
That's hilarious.
But now you guys understand why I thought it was important to get him here. Phenomenal human being with just a wealth of knowledge. So thank
That's
you,
awesome.
Dr. Flowers.
That is awesome. And that's great to know that our governing body has somebody that can be utilized,
Yes.
so that's awesome. That's good to know. Well, we're going to switch gears just a little bit.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a little bit of the circus show. Let's go. So we can't keep it super serious. We have to have fun because this is what makes us happy, right? This is what brings us joy. So in true fall fashion, coming into fall fashion, we're going to let Clyde have some great fun.
Don't you even try to play innocent all of a sudden. Don't even go.
Because we are going to allow Clyde to share his early college football impressions.
I'm the only one sharing impressions?
No, but you're going to start us off.
Oh.
Yeah, so you understand this. I had a conversation with someone, and it was like halfway through Saturday's games, and they're like, "Oh man, I know your man Clyde can't wait to clown this guys." So have at it.
So let me say this. It is my passionate opinion every year that in the realm of college football, we always do the same thing wrong. Preseason rankings are a joke. They should not exist, but we all know why they exist, to feed the machine of, getting the people to the end that they want to get to the end. And by they, I mean ESPN. So I won't go down that path again. I will just say preseason rankings are total bullocks, to borrow one of our English terms. And there was no better example of that than when you finally learn what happens when the SEC actually has to travel. LSU went out west and they got clowned by the UCLA Bruins. Now, let me be very, very clear about this. I may have attended UCLA. I do not root for UCLA football. I went to a total of 2 games in the 3 years I was there. I don't care about UCLA football, but I did thoroughly enjoy watching LSU walk in, talking nonsense, all the way up to the head coach, running his mouth and being trolled on the way out perfectly by the UCLA sports info, whoever's responsible for putting together their hype videos. Perfectly played all the way down to the Go Tigers and the Get the Gat video. Brilliantly done. But yeah, listen, everybody's overrated in preseason rankings, with the exception of maybe Alabama. And, just stop doing it. Just stop doing it. But I have a feeling that if the SEC would get on the plane a little bit more often, you might see some things happen from time to time. I can't remember the last time Alabama left the Southeast, but I digress.
Well, when you're collecting the trophy every year, Wiley, make people come to you. And
when it's all set up.
So I mean, all I'm gonna say is this, man. I don't recall that the SEC, the NCAA championships or bowl games, whatever these things are always played in Alabama. They're not always played in the South. But hey, this is what makes this show wonderful, is that you're entitled to your opinion, and that's a wonderful thing. Alabama football, I will ride with you that there's some very overrated teams in the SEC. There always are. Okay, but there's also some very good football played in the SEC. So I don't think I can allow you to clown the SEC as a whole.
I'm clowning LSU.
Okay, exactly. Then let's clown
LSU.
Saying the SEC needs to travel, whatever. Okay. But that's okay. But I see when you're the best, people should come to you. That's it.
Alabama is the best.
Okay. The SEC as a whole has more championships than anybody else. Alabama is not the only team in the SEC that wins. But again, that's not what this segment's about. My season impressions are, one, I think that people are talking about the Georgia Clemson game as if Georgia was just that much better than Clemson. Okay. Clemson's off defense held Georgia's offense to 3 points, as is Georgia held them to 3 points. So I don't know how this became Georgia's so good and Clemson so bad.
Yes, you do.
Neither one of those offenses are very good. Okay, so I'm a little baffled by that. But that's, again, goes to this rankings and stuff that we play into, because Georgia jumps up to number 2. Clemson takes this big nose dive. They beat them on an interception, right? They beat them on one play, decided the game.
Yeah.
And now Georgia's that much better than Clemson, folks? No. So I know this isn't common, but I agree with Clyde on this. Preseason rankings are a joke. They need to stop, right? The other thing that I was really impressed by this weekend, Ole Miss's offense is a problem. Like that, and they did that without the ringmaster was at home with COVID, and they did that, right? You know, I was impressed with Texas on the offensive side of the ball. They got some work to do on the defensive side of the ball. They're better. I actually don't think that people are giving UCLA enough credit. Everybody's talking about how bad LSU is, but UCLA is a lot better. I mean, the efficiency of the offense. I mean, the man said, give me 3 or 4 years. It's been 3 or 4 years, and they're a problem. So I'm not going to keep regurgitating. I'm going to let Lamar jump in here before I steal all of his stuff. But
oh no, I could honestly, this segment I could sit out and watch YouTube and just pop popcorn. I'll just look. I watched this thing with Jamel Hill, and she was talking about how the ridiculousness of preseason rankings, and I won't pontificate anywhere as long and as eloquently as she did, but I'll just say it like this. When every single year these programs change personnel almost wholesale, the idea that you are going to preseason rank college football teams who don't play similar schedules from year to year, who may or may not have a different coach, losing your quarterback is way bigger than losing any other player. Like all of those things, it's asinine, and we know why it's done. And the thing is, they could have the happy medium. Like, do it. Just let 4 games play, right? Like, have the first preseason ranking come out the first week of October. You know what? They'll still be wrong, but they'll make sense.
That's right.
Because here's the thing.
That's right.
Preseason rankings are going to be wrong. And look, we're here for that. That's the conversation. Who did you say you ranked at the beginning? Like, we're here for that. But at least they would make sense if they came out October 1st. When they come out the week before, like when they come out before Labor Day, you're like, look, sure, that sounds good. You have no idea. And yes, look, we know the spots, right? You got a top 10, what really is a top 12, because as long as you're within top 12, you can always get to 1. You got 12 to 20, which is that revolving door of the Power 5 teams that have a loss early, and that's where we put them. And then we stick the one group of 5 team that's currently killing everybody. We put them in there, and we raise them from off the rankings to 25th, to 23rd, to 21st, to 16th, to 13th, to 12th. And that's as far as they ever get. Because at the end of the day, like, that's the ceiling of where we're going to allow that shenanigans to really go on. Or we'll put them in there in the 6th hole, but there's 3 SEC teams and 2 Power 5 and 2 other Power 5 teams ahead of them. So when we get to the strength of schedule at the end, we know if they're going to drop. So I get, like, look, it's all a song and dance, right? I just would like can we let's play better music? Just wait a month and then let's do the song and dance, and I'm here for it. I said all that to say this. The narrative that Scott Frost was a great coach and was going to go to Nebraska and fix his hometown Cornhuskers, there may not be anything more wrong in college football. Because here's the thing, right? Bo Pelini got fired because he was only winning an average of 9 games a year. And Nebraska football is better than that. And mind you, that's 9 games a year for like 8 years. Okay. Since Scott Frost has got to Nebraska, I had someone in sports information describe them as a towering inferno of ineptitude stuffed in a dumpster fire going downhill.
Well, you know,
because here's the thing. He has eroded their culture. He is breaking rules internally and is currently under an internal investigation for all kinds of recruiting violations because he thinks that they can practice when they're not supposed to. And then worse yet, he's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer, and they have the worst quarterbacks in the country.
well, you did a lot. You did a lot there, sir. I'd like to. I'm not going to pile on to that, but there are some programs out there that have always thought of themselves to be more important than they actually are.
Notre Dame.
Okay. You know, Michigan got a little bit of that. Texas got a little bit of that. So Bo Pelini got bounced. Most smart people, you know, it's probably a mistake. Mac Brown got fired at Texas. Still trying to figure out that one. They haven't been better since. So, you know, when you're trying to win the rat race, not everybody is Nick Saban. Not everybody's going to be Nick Saban. And the Scott Frost thing is interesting to me because the number one fault in that original argument was his recruiting base that he has access to is totally different in Nebraska than it was at Central Florida.
You are not getting kids from Central Florida to go to play football in Nebraska.
No. So it's
not enough of them.
It's a little harder. But speaking of Central Florida, the best story of college football was actually decided in week 1. And you will not find a better story in college football this year than the reemergence and return triumphant story of Mackenzie Milton. If you're not, you know, a big fan of college football, Mackenzie Milton was at Central Florida and was phenomenal at quarterback and was probably the biggest reason for that program being as awesome as it was for so long. And that kid suffered a gruesome lower leg injury on par with what happened to Alex Smith. And somehow that kid came in and played his ass off in this Florida State versus Notre Dame game, led them all the way back from 10 points down, almost got the win. And there, you will see nothing better this season than Mackenzie Milton playing quarterback at Florida State. Like, that's the best story. And that was the biggest storyline for me from week 1. And you'll probably hear me ranting about Mackenzie Milton all year because it's a great story.
And the other side of that story in that game is that, you know, same thing we talked about a little bit earlier. Everybody's talking about how bad Notre Dame is. Florida State's better than they were. Are they ready to challenge for championships again yet? No, they're not. But they are better than they were a year ago. You can't discount playing on someone's home field. You can't discount that, you know. And I think that Notre Dame might not be as good as people wanted to advertise, but Florida State is better. So let's give them credit for that as well. And, you know, I think Big Ten football is going to be interesting this year. They slugged their way through some things this weekend. And Ohio State gets to face Oregon this weekend. So that could turn into quite the track meet up there.
Okay, so I wanted to get to that. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. Now, we all understand the dynamics of conference realignments and the shifts and the alliances and all this other stuff that's in the mix and going on. I will say this, for whatever reason you want to say, turning on the TV and watching credible programs playing other credible programs is better television than watching Alabama play the Citadel or something like that. So whatever that dynamic is, weekend 1 was awesome. And I hope that trend continues. If we're going to play out of conference, I at least want to see credible matchups for, on both sides. I think that's just better television. I get the money game issue. I understand why it's done, but there's got to be a better way. And so there wasn't very much of those shenanigans this weekend, and it was awesome. I hope that trend continues. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think it was great football. Watching Louisville, Ole Miss, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, Miami. I mean, just go to, the Big Ten opened up with Big Ten opponents, so I think that, watching those games early, that's what college football should be. We shouldn't be, trying to, pile up wins and statistics to try to get into a playoff. You sharpen yourself by you beat great competitors every weekend, you're going to get to the playoff. And I think that's what it is. Definitely much better television to watch. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
I don't think anybody will argue against better football being watched ever.
All right, so then I got one more phenomenon for impressions from week one, and I swear I'm extremely conflicted on this because look, it was awesome to watch, and I went to the San Jose State opener. 16,000 people came out. The house was packed. It was great. Like, they did a phenomenal job putting that on. I watched games this weekend. Stadiums are packed, and it was great, and I'm sure all the players loved it. But I don't know if I'm feeling it, and I don't know how great of an idea it is. It just seems like a really bad idea. And I know we're here, and I know it's not going to change, but am I the only one that felt like Delta's real? Like, are we really doing this right now? Was that just me?
It was very cringeworthy. Having gone to my first TCU game this weekend, seeing the student section just packed, where I don't know if this is just an athletics section, but where I was seated with my tickets, like, we were able to spread out. And so I felt better about my life for that selfishly. But like, every time the big screen would, the whatever it's called, the Megatron, whatever, flashed that student section or the band, or I was like, and I don't think I've seen in my email the COVID report, if we're even getting that like we did last year. But no, I agree. And I'll say our staff was waiting to see what would happen after the weekend and the first football game. Yeah, it was very, and I mean, we have another variant. I'm going to call it Mo because it's MU, but I know for Greek it's Mu, but it's not. But yeah, so it's yikes.
I'll be honest with you. Because I guess I wasn't really thinking about it. So the first time I saw a packed stadium, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's what we're doing. I was like, I've become accustomed to, like, we're spread out. There's a few people. And then I saw these packed stadiums. And I was like, oh, like, we're really doing this, right? I never thought about it until I saw it. And so it was kind of a shock to the system. Like, okay, like, they showed a picture of the swamp and it was packed. And we were playing FAU. So like, what's going to happen next weekend when we play Alabama? I mean, people falling out of the rafters.
Bro, one of the fake narratives on ESPN were that LSU was going to, basically blow out UCLA because UCLA wouldn't have anybody in the stands. The Rose Bowl was full, basically. Okay? So if Cali has decided, you know what, it's all good,
right?
It's all good everywhere. Like, I'm like, I don't know.
The crazy part is, if you look at the statistics and the spread analysis, right? Like, I'm less worried about the packed stands. I'm more worried about the packed bars after the games.
Oh, sure.
Right? Sure. Like, I'm not like this. The super spreader events have not been, 60,000 people in a stand standing next to each other outside. The issue has been bars, restaurants, right? And that's the problem. It's like, you got college town. Look, Clemson, South Carolina can't social distance the 100,000 people that come to the game, right? So when they leave the stadium, which is the only thing in Clemson, South Carolina, they can hold 87,000 people. When they leave there, wherever they go, you're not social distancing if you go inside. And like, I think that's the fear for me, right? Is it's like, it's the gigantic collections of people, and then we don't police them after we collected them all. Like, look, come and watch the game. But then after the game, like, okay, like we gotta go radical stuff, like every other bar is open, you know, on every other weekend, like stuff like, you know, it's like, it's gotta be, there still has to be some common sense to this stuff, because you can't just, all right, we're good, and collect 100,000 people and then go, well,
I mean,
you know,
like, we couldn't have went 50% capacity. We couldn't have done that.
There would have
Like,
been too much fight.
It had to be a free for all.
Well, see, and the thing is like, let's just call this what it is, guys. I mean, they're back to business as usual. You know,
Oh, it's a money grab, for sure.
Definitely. You know, so it's like, okay, I can't be the only one that's noticed the number of coaches in a lot of sports, not just football and basketball, that you came out of the pandemic and people got contract extensions and raises. Right? You got to pay for it somehow. And if you shut down the football stadium, you can't pay for it. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, we're back to business in football, we're good. And people know they're going to come to the games now because it's been taken away from them for a year, right? People have hiked their prices, not just for the ticket prices, hiked the prices for, you know, concessions and all that stuff. So it's
concessions, parking, all of it.
And that's why it kind of sucks, or at least has me looking at it like, because the fact of the matter is, and we talked about this, you know, during the last year, the pandemic didn't affect the TV dollars, folks. And that's the big, huge bulk of all of it. If anything, you couldn't go to the games, so there was more eyes on the TV. So they ain't lose no money.
Like, not any real money.
Not any real money. So I'm just like, oh man, like we could have went, you know, limited capacity, but nope. Everybody said, the hell with that. We going.
And so now the key will be, what's the backlash from it? And I haven't heard about, I know here in town, I haven't heard about any big spikes.
That's just because your state is one huge big spike.
No, hold on a second. The county I live in is not one huge big spikes. And I know there hasn't been a big spike on our campus, not yet, but it's only Tuesday, so you know.
Yeah,
right. You gotta wait 2 weeks.
You gotta wait. It's Wednesday, but we might wake up on Friday morning and go, campus is shut down. But right now we're good.
Well, here's my thing about that, and we can stop after this. It doesn't matter. I wonder if part of that non-existent spike is because those who are vaccinated aren't necessarily having the symptoms that were prevalent before. And so they're not testing.
Yeah, because see,
you know
I know most of us on these tiles know people, they got tested just because and found out they had it.
Yep.
I've got a good friend of mine. He only got tested because he was going to a conference. He has it and hasn't had a symptom yet. So how many people are walking around and don't know they have it?
Yeah.
No symptom.
You know, that's what the vaccines are for. And I mean, there's no way. And I mean, this is gonna go left field, right? But like last year, from a sport perspective, right? The kids had to be tested. They had to be tested twice a week. They had to do special tests when they're traveling. Totally necessary, had to do. But that actually is expensive. So now that there's a vaccine, most schools have said, oh no, if you want to be on this campus, you must be vaccinated. And therefore now they don't have to test people like that no more. They're still available, but you don't have to do it. That's a money saver. So
now you're depending on people being honest about how they're feeling. Because there's people out there that feel it. They're like, I'm not telling anybody, right? I'm fine. I know, you know, people are out there doing it. And so like, it's a very, very mixed bag. And like I said, let's see what happens. You know, like already from a sports standpoint, a competition standpoint, last year, if you had a spike on your team, they rearranged the game. If you have a spike on your team this year, you forfeit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the best thing I saw from that is that there are double forfeits. If neither team, so like you still have like, so let's say, you know, Michigan's supposed to play Ohio State, right? If Ohio State is already kind of in the red and it's obvious they're not going to play, Michigan still has to show fitness, or else they still have to test them all and show results, or else they get a forfeit too.
Wow.
I think that's good.
No, that's definitely good.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
And well, this is not the college realm, but one of the best, coaches on this particular issue has been Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians, Tampa Bay Bucks, have been very matter of fact. They're like, look, I don't care what their policy is talking about the league. He said, oh, my team on this policy, oh, you're going to be vaccinated or you're going to be cut. And in the NFL world, he can do that. And his team and I think the Atlanta Falcons are the two teams that instantly got their people in line. They're like, we're not playing this game with y'all. So that was great.
And what's crazy is, in complete contrast to that, the Washington football team has the lowest vaccination rate of any team in the NFL, and their coach had cancer last year.
Yeah.
Their coach fought through chemotherapy to continue to coach them, and he has literally begged them to get vaccinated because of him. Yeah, we're good. We'll see you when we see you, coach.
Yikes.
Crazy. It's crazy.
They need,
I rarely agree with Stephen A. Smith, but his rant about how he would handle the vaccine if he was the commissioner, it's one of the few things I was like, yep, I'm right there with you. I mean, look, it's private. It's private entities, which means you can get away with whatever you want to get away with. They can mandate that if you don't get vaccinated, you don't play.
Absolutely.
But they won't.
That's it.
All right. Well, we mentioned it in this last segment here briefly, but I want to bring it to light because I think it's a conversation worthy, definitely for Clyde and myself, but just as general perspective from, within our audience and the four tiles here. We talked about recruiting earlier and the fallout of Nebraska recruiting and whatnot, but should your recruiting strategies change as your recruiting area changes, locale? So talked about Central Florida versus Nebraska, Clyde going from Alabama to Cal to San Jose, myself going from starting in California, getting to Indiana, and now coming down to Texas. What are your thoughts on strategies? Should you, how do you make those adjustments, if so?
Clyde?
I'm first on this. The short answer is yes for me. I think that your recruiting strategy must evolve, adapt, and be dictated by where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Now, when you go from assistant to head coach, now all of a sudden you're in the position to dictate what your recruiting strategies are going to be. And, it's your job to identify how you're going to define success for your team and how you're going to, best, combat that, that endeavor. So for me, I'm currently the head coach of San Jose State. We are a public institution in the state of California. There's some advantages to that. There are some disadvantages to that. And my strategy has to be, based on how I'm going to ultimately define success for this roster and what do I want to accomplish, in my time here. For me, and there are phenomenal kids in track and field from the state of Florida, right? But how much time, effort, and money am I going to put into chasing that pot of talent when I'm all the way out here? I would probably do better signing more kids out of the state of Florida when I'm at Alabama State than I would out here, just because geographics matter, right? And the money that it costs matters. What it costs to go to school here if you're from the locale versus what it is for out of state or international is very, very different. And not every school has that reality. If you're at Baylor, Baylor's a private school. It costs what it costs to go to Baylor. It costs what it costs to go to Stanford. It costs what it costs to go to USC. That's all the same. So, you know, where you are and what your mission is should dictate your recruiting strategy. And I think a lot of people, a lot of coaches get too caught up in their personal mission. Like they want to prove something to themselves, or they want to prove something to their colleagues, and they lose sight of intelligent recruiting strategy. At least I've seen that play out a lot. You know, we have our mission here, and you know, our mission is to make noise at the national meet. And so our recruiting strategy is going to dictate that mission.
I'll jump in there. What I think is, it's two parts. One, I think that wherever you go, your goal should be to dominate within a 250-mile radius in every direction.
Yep.
And so one of the first things I think you should always do wherever you go is get to know who the power brokers are and such, where you are, where you're moving to, as rapidly as you can. I mean, it's, you know, club coaches, four-year coaches, whatever it is, make the connections necessary so that you know who the power brokers are, the decision makers are in your area. Two, and this is a big one for me, and I find it amazing at how like avant-garde people think I am for this thought. I think when you change schools, one of your first things should be is to figure out who the most successful team is on campus and go pick their recruiting coordinator's brains. Go pick their staff brains so that you don't spend the next year, 2 years, 3 years reinventing a wheel that they were already rolling well. Right? Like we had this conversation briefly when we were talking about, you know, if and when AT, and then when she did get the job at Vandy. And I said off camera, the first people I would go see is the baseball people, because Vandy is average to below average SEC standards in every other sport, it seems, except baseball. And in baseball, they're literally industry standard. They're all at the same school. And I really don't believe that the baseball team has a whole different rule set as every other team on campus. Now, maybe there's things they can do that you can't, whatever. But I know if I took that job, just as an example, the first week I would be in that office to be like, okay, give me your top 5 things that you guys do here that you didn't do any other place, or top 5 things you think helps you guys in bringing in recruits. Because it's a conversation and it can't hurt you. But I am shocked at how infrequently it happens.
I've done it. It works. It works. That's good advice.
I think that, you know, obviously the answer is yes. I mean, for me, I think you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. And I think the biggest mistake people make is they recruit to recruit instead of recruiting to your strengths. Someone once said to me, I need to find a triple jumper. Well, what if there's not one available? I need to find a shot put. What if there's not one available? And what if you can't coach the shot put, right? So the other thing that I think people make the mistake of is not knowing the landscape. As Lamar said, like, know the landscape of your conference. You know, try to find a way. If you're trying to beat someone in something, try to find where they're not. And if you're strong enough, that's one of your strengths, then backdoor it that way. You know, your recruiting should evolve yearly. And, you know, sometimes, obviously, a change dictates that. Going from one level to another will always dictate that. But you have to be adaptable to the situation. You have to be adaptable to your graduation. And the biggest mistake ever made in recruiting is you get a good class and you don't recruit until that class graduates. Mistake ever. Again, adaptability. So,
may I add to that?
I just want to make sure we don't lose Chew on this one, because I would like for us to get her take.
Go ahead, Chew.
No. I want you to finish your thought.
No, it's fine. It was a separate thought. It was related.
Oh, okay. Just kidding. I think that, again, you do and you should change, alter, reconstruct, whatever reformative word it is that you want to insert there. I think another big part of it is the language. What words are you using to attract the flies? No, the bees to the honey. Let's find a better one. Sorry. The bees to the honey. That part, knowing what it takes, the identification of getting into the school. Everybody can recruit top notch, but if they can't get in the school, it doesn't matter. So knowing the different qualifications, we talked about earlier, what it's going to take to make the impact, whether it's conference, regional, or prelims or national, but impacting the university, what's going to make the difference? Especially going, as mentioned before, level to level and whatnot, when I made the jump to D3 from D2, the verbiage had to change, the eyeballs had to change, where I was looking, obviously, locale-wise had to change, but even where I was going. I wasn't going just to track. I was going to different sports and identifying there, because that's what D3 was. D3 is a double dip area. There are dual sport athletes a lot. So it was one of those type things. And then, just mid-major to Power 5, mind blown. And, obviously that's on the cover sheet of that book, but the strategy is different. You would think coming into TCU, coming into the Power 5, just go over the top kids, just go for the top kids. But it's not. There's actually strategy behind it. And so knowing what the strategy is, identifying what the need is, all the above. And this is how I know I sit in good company, because everything the three tiles other than myself have said have been an element of the conversation that I've had recently. And so I love it. And that's how we know if this is resonating with you, you're on the right path. We just got to keep working. And that's part of it too, is getting comfortable, saying why you're in this locale now and saying how you're going to change the locale. That was the big thing. Was I remember the biggest compliment I received, and this is not off topic, but a little parallel to it. As I was leaving California, we were at the California State JUCO meet, and another coach from our conference was like, I'm sorry to see you go, great coach, but I'm glad to see you go, because every athlete I contact, you've already contacted. And I was like, kind of my job, and then that word got out to Indiana. I don't know how, but it did get out to Indiana, where, wow, you're at that meet again. Oh, you're here again. Oh, you're here again. But it's being impactful. It's having the presence and knowing where you should be at the right time. So I say that to say that.
So that's very well said, Chu. What I wanted to add to this is, I always tell people, good recruiting is about relationships. But I don't just mean that out in the world with kids and parents. I mean that on your campus as well. So anytime you go to a new job, you better go make an appointment with the academic people, not just the athletic academic people, the academic people. And you better go build a relationship with the financial aid people. Because if you know how academics and financial aid work on your campus specifically, you will save yourself a lot of time, effort, and money in recruiting. And for me, something that I've always believed and done myself, and something that I will preach to the staff that I am putting in place here. In my world, recruiting is about hustle, right? You will not find any better hustle in the recruiting realm than D3. So get yourself some D3 friends and learn about hustle, okay? And respectfully, we tease them a lot, but the football staff on every campus is the guerrilla recruit. Like that's all they do, right? So implore some of their strategic elements to what you do. Of course, we don't have the size of their staff. We don't have the resources that they have, but the way they structure it usually is pretty smart. And you would be good to, you know, take some cues from that. And of course, building a relationship with the football staff can only help your men's program. So, you know, relationships, people, build them.
Good relationships. Good
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
Quality versus quantity.
Yeah.
So great. That was great insight. And I think that was those, we all spoke words that if you have, as an audience, if you haven't heard that already, you've heard it now. Ask us questions. Because I think I would like to say, and maybe I'm boasting myself a little too confidently here, that the 4 tiles are great recruiters.
I've had my moment.
I mean, I don't have a class to show it, but I have other things to show of it. And people have backed me on that. So I'm going to ride that wave a little
At
bit.
the end of the day, we all just trying to keep up with Lucious.
I mean,
No,
Y'all speak for yourselves.
my retort to that is good luck.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. All right. Well, again, we're going to change lanes and we're going to move on to the shots fired. Pew, 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 pew. And Clyde is the lucky recipient of stepping into the line of fire this week.
Of course.
So I'm going to ask, because I don't recognize that tie. Is that a new tie?
No. It's a throwback. This the track.
Oh, just kidding. Okay.
The track hurdle tie, you know.
Love it.
Sponsored by the lovely Miss Gina Ryan.
I know. Hey, Miss Gina. But I say that because we haven't talked about ties for Clyde, and that's okay too. We've grown. We're evolving. This is a new season, new themes. But I didn't recognize the tie, so I wanted to ask. But nonetheless, sir, your seatbelt fastened? Are you ready to go?
I am ready. Go ahead. Do your
Got
work.
it. And one other thing, I like the haircut. Looking good. Just I had to give the shout out to Empire. So, well, if you went to Empire,
they put me on camera more these days. So, yeah.
You gotta get it right, get it tight. All right, here we go. San Quinn or Selly Cell?
I gotta tell you, I've never really been a huge fan of either. But if you force me to listen to one, I guess I'd go San Quinn. Okay,
good answer. Good answer. Phone conversation or in-person conversations?
In person. I hate the phone. If recruiting wasn't part of my job, I'd probably not have a phone. Like, I don't enjoy being on the phone.
All right. When eating chicken, are you going for a thigh piece or a breast piece?
Again, not a huge fan of chicken.
What do you eat?
I mean, I eat chicken. I just, thigh versus breast, probably breast.
Oh, man. Who needs, capitalized needs, to be in the next Hall of Fame class for football?
Oh, dang. I thought you was going to say for the alphabet crew. And the answer is Richie Bean.
Oh,
but
we already know that answer.
But for football, I mean, you could just induct Tom Brady now and save everybody time. I mean, if anybody deserves to be an instant inductee, it is the GOAT. So just put Brady in now.
I love it. That's funny. Getting into the blocks, did you slap your legs or do a few jumps?
Oh, I jumped. I'm pogos, springs all day. I jumped.
Love it. All right. Living in the Bay, umbrella or no?
No, hell no.
All right. Donuts or bagels?
Bagels.
And last one. Where would you be if you were on vacation right now?
Wherever TB tells me I'm supposed to be.
Good answer. Good answer. I love it. I love it. Well, sir, you have survived rapid fire this week.
Well, have I though?
Oh no, JK. Gentlemen, I forgot. My bad. I don't know why. Like 25,000 weeks in, I still do it wrong.
Go ahead, Lamar.
Lamar looks mischievous more than normal.
I don't know why I look mischievous. I'm just chuckling at what has become commonplace is like the fear factor is to the two additional questions. It's not the rapid fire questions anymore. Mine is actually going to be a relatively simple one for our wonderful audience. You've been in the big chair for long enough now to answer this question. Give me the three biggest, and paycheck can't be one of them. Give me three biggest differences between being in the big chair and being an assistant.
You don't have to ask anybody permission for any damn thing. That's
a lie. You have an athletic director.
Well, yeah, but the AD don't check up on, the head coach is like an assistant gets checked up. You know what I mean? It's a different level of permission. So that's the first thing. You could just make decisions, which is interesting. It's for me, and honestly, this is the biggest thing. I don't even know if I have three, but this is the most important thing for me. The weight of responsibility is completely different. Like it just is. When you're an assistant, obviously you concern yourself with the job that you're doing and the kids that you are serving in your everyday capacity. But I'm a fan of the other groups on the team and the coaches that coach them, but I'm not overly concerned with what's going on over there, right? When you're in this chair, it's like there's a weight of responsibility. Like I actually have to really pay attention to what's going on with the distance crew and making sure that everything is right for their competition in the upcoming weekend. I ain't thought about cross country and distance runners in 2 years at all. Like not for a second. Like, oh, there's me. Cool. How we do? It's the weight of responsibility is just totally different. And then if you ask me for three, so I'll give you a third one. It's in that same realm though. It's as a head coach, when it comes to the other coaches on your staff, it's like you're actually responsible for the livelihoods of the people that you've recruited to come work for you. And again, that's a level of responsibility, but that actually matters. Like, the lives of the people that you work with every day have a lot more consequence to you, and you have to care a lot more about it. When you're an assistant, like, okay, I guess we're all showing up at work today. But yeah.
Or maybe.
Okay, so the only question I have for you, and it's a pretty simple one as well, is have you a plan to how long before you believe you can win your first conference title? And what is that timeline?
A plan? Interesting.
I just needed to Birdman handle. That was a great question.
It is a great question. He asked it because he knows I'm not going to run from it. I'm a math person, and so from a conference perspective, I don't believe the math is there for us to make a run at it this season. But please believe I will be doing everything I can and plotting how we can absolutely make a run at it by year 2. And knowing me, if I'm not in the mix by year 2, I'm gonna be pissed off about it. So, I don't get up and do this every day to collect a check and just exist within my conference or within the realm of national spotlight or having some kind of say in that. So I'm coming for all I can as quickly as I can, and that is the mandate that my staff will be walking them into themselves. So year 2 for me is the goal.
Yeah, that's about what I thought. Just wanted to hear it.
I wanted to commit it to recording.
Absolutely.
I love it. Mark the date, September 8th, 2021. Clyde says year 2. So in 23, we will come back and visit this. I love it. I love it.
What else are you doing it for, if not to win?
I mean, yes. Well, thank you so much for the contributing questions, and to make ourselves as angelic as possible. We'll close out the night with our heartbeat props and show praise to those who are still here to receive it in person. I am going to jump in and go first because it is on my mind and I have to get it out before it goes away. The teachers at all levels. So whether you're primary, secondary, higher education, if you're a daycare provider who's doing it, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because, you know, you've got your own families who you're putting at risk. You know, you're walking into the fire every day because God knows, and I apologize for that reference, but who knows what your students are doing, familial, non-familial, with recognition, without recognition, day in and day out. And you choose to be there and you choose to put yourself second, if not third, to be present for the youth and for those who are trying to make themselves better. So my heartbeat props go out to all the educators out there who are continuing to toe the line every day and selflessly endanger themselves, for lack of a better way to say it. So I appreciate you completely from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm going to give my heartbeat props to a young man who I think was one of the favorites of everybody on this panel. That's to Mr. Michael Norman. Mikey, been a lot of fun watching you go do what you've been doing in terms of running the 100 meters. To see the light in your eyes, the fun you're having, just welcome back, young man. We're very proud of you. Keep chasing your dreams. Don't listen to the naysayers. You are on the right path, and congratulations and great job.
I'll go next. Let the EP close it out. Mine is short and simple. My heartbeat props go out to Miss Charmaine Darden, the first addition to my staff, my head of cross country and distance. We are in the trenches together and we're gonna get through this cross country season, girl, I promise you. But I appreciate you arriving as fast as you did. And she hit the ground running and she's been phenomenal. And that's what I expected. And it's gonna be a lot of fun, but I got you. Keep grinding.
I like it. Mine's gonna be relatively lighthearted and probably gonna get, out of you three, but my heartbeat props go out to parents. I've been thinking a lot about this for the last probably 48 hours, just all the things that I say we, because I'm also a parent, but all the things that we do, we somewhere along the line, we go from being selfish to selfless. And we do all of these things for our children. Moms will get up in the, in the dark 30 and take kids to school or make lunches and stuff before they go to school. And dads do too. And that wasn't a slight. I'm not going to do this gender bias of who does what, but there's lots of catch being played, lots of food being made, weddings being paid for. I'm going to one next week. I didn't pay for it. But I do know, but I do know someone who did, right? And when I asked him about the budget, he was like, well, whatever she wants. And I was like, that's what I mean. Like, parents will drive across the country for junior college baseball games. Parents will forego Thanksgiving and Christmas because of youth basketball and youth football. And so on. Parents will risk life, limb, and red light stoppages to go from practice to little Timmy's baseball game. And at the end of the day, let's just be honest. Like, parenting is a truly thankless job in most cases. Like you get the occasional, but for the most part, it's a thankless job. And, parenting is really, really hard. And I do want to send heartbeat props out to everybody who listens and watches this show, who is a parent, and like, just take 30 seconds for yourself and pat yourself on the back, because there's a lot of work that you do that goes unnoticed, but here's the thing, it matters to those who matter.
Very true. Very true. Well, again, we've finished a show that has quality to it, has a little bit of nonsense, and then addressed everything in between. So hopefully we keep having you all show up and chuckle with us or turn on that light for the aha moment. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And until next week, we'll see each other soon. Have a great night, y'all.
When the lights come on, the road just get to running. When the mics come on, opponents mess the plumbing. Heard you like it warm, hot knife the butter. Truth pin them hard, knock them off that rebuttal. Tsunami, tidal wave to your puddle. Tough love punch you in the arms, little brothers. Athletics LLC, there's no others. Track and field's place will appeal to go further. Hey, Wile E. Coyote is road runners. Feels like you know us, you've been with us the whole summer. If not for this quarantine, these four corners wouldn't be here, but we here, so start learning. You gotta earn your stripes, gotta get your scars. Show you how to fight, but show us who you are. You lack experience, but still you wanna talk. And who is actually talking to you? Circle's kinda small. Heads prevail when the backbone's strong. Gotta keep it coming, no, it won't last long. Pass and fail, then sell the sad song. And if you don't check yourself, then that's wrong. Just trying to give you the real that you asked for. So why you keep cutting us off to ask more? We put it in slow-mo, but you fast forward. Athletics LLC, the task force.